Hello YouTube, it is Sunday and I hope you have had a great weekend. Hope you've been out doing things with human beings, IRL. Hope you took the opportunity to invite somebody somewhere or meet somebody somewhere and go do something together and spend some time away from screens and without your face in your phone, trying to learn a little bit more about how to get along socially in the world. And today's topic is body language. And this is an awesome topic. It's probably the most fun aspect of social skills that I know of. And it occurs to me that it's super important for you to learn it because it's something that gives you a huge advantage over a lot of other people who are not really able to pay attention to this and are not really aware of it. And it occurred to me the other day that these times are so different that when you're growing up, you're not growing up like I grew up and you're not getting the practice that I got interacting with other human beings. And what that means is that we are going to have to somewhat hack that experience. We're going to have to short circuit it. I can't rewind the clock and send you out playing after school all day, every day with your friends and negotiating who's going to do what and where you're going to go and how it's all going to go down from the time you're 8 or 9, 10 years old. I don't have a time machine, so I can't do that. So, and by the way, it's all of that teaches most people, or taught people my generation, taught most of us a lot of the body language stuff that I'm going to talk about. Just through trial and error and, not picking up on the signals, and then something goes bad and then you look back on it and you're like, oh, I guess I should have known that person was not having a great day. And you kind of come to figure stuff like that out, but you figure it out by making mistakes. Well, we're going to try to short circuit some of that by talking about body language. So, the first thing is that we need to recognize that we are kind of like a radio in the sense that we send signals to the world and we receive signals from the world. Now, most of what we're going to talk about today is going to be about signals that are being sent from the world to us and things that we're going to try to interpret. But I want to start with one that we send out. And this is one component of body language that's very important, and that is eye contact. What I see when I watch teenagers, especially if I watch teenagers meeting other people that they don't know, I see very little eye contact. When I was growing up, you were taught when you meet somebody, you shake their hand with a firm handshake and you look them right in the eye and you say, "Pleased to meet you, sir or ma'am." That is what I was taught growing up in Texas, and I don't see much of that these days. The manner part with the ma'am and sir and stuff like that, I'm not super hung up about that. But the eye contact part is important, and I don't see much of that. So I want to explain to you why that's important. The main reason is because it exudes confidence. It is you sending a signal to that person, I am comfortable with myself, and I feel that I am at the level where it is cool for me to meet you and talk to you on the level, as opposed to I'm shaking your hand and I'm kind of looking down because I'm really timid and I don't know if I should be talking to you or not because, who are you, who am I, and you're just this person and I'm just, that's what you're giving off. That's the signal you're sending when you don't look somebody in the eye. You're sending the signal that I am afraid of you, I feel nervous about this, I feel very uncomfortable. And I don't want you to send that signal out. That's not a good signal. That's not a good way to start anything. Okay? So the first body language component is eye contact, and the signal you send is you make eye contact so that they understand that you are confident. Now, if I say make eye contact, you may be like, well, how long? Because obviously if you hold eye contact for too long, it's creepy and people get kind of weirded out by it. And you don't want to just glance up. You don't want to be like, "Nice to meet you." That's not going to work either. So, is there a hack? Is there a trick? Yes, there is. Figure out what their eye color is. So you look at their eyes and look at it long enough to figure out what color their eyes are and you will have just been told their name. In your brain, I want you to say, this person's name has blue eyes. This is the voice that's not coming out here. It's the voice that's going on back here. So the way that this goes is, hi Dave, I'm Chris, nice to meet you. Voice in my head, Dave has blue eyes. That's all it takes. That long, and then you can look away and do whatever you want to do. You will have done it for long enough. You get two things out of that. The first thing is, by saying Dave's name to him, hopefully it will stick in your brain a little better than if he just says his name and you don't say it. And then by saying Dave's name again in your your inside voice, your inner voice, by saying Dave has blue eyes, you have not only said his name again, but you have also captured an attribute of Dave in your head, and you're very likely to remember that. So, look people in the eye. When you meet them especially, look at them long enough to figure out what color their eyes are. Okay, so that's the first one. That's the signal that you send out. But are there any things that you can learn from somebody looking at you? So you're looking in their eyes. Are they sending any signals to you? And it turns out that they are. So there's a concept called dilation of the pupils that tells you a lot. So when a pupil is dilated, that's the black part in the middle of your eyeball, and it gets big. That is a dilated pupil. The opposite of that is a constricted pupil, and that's when that black eye gets really, really small. Now, it turns out that all human beings, whether they're from Austin, Texas, or whether they're from New York or California or China or Russia, all human beings share this exact same quality, which is that when they are thinking about or talking about something that is interesting to them or something that they like, their eyes will dilate. And vice versa, if there's something that they don't like or something that makes them feel uncomfortable, their eyes will constrict. This is a super fun thing to play around with, watch. You can test this. You can talk to your buddy and say the name of his favorite band and watch his eyes. It works. It's cool. And that gives you an excuse to look into people's eyes because you want to see what they're doing. And this is a big part of what we're doing when we're interacting with people. We're learning to pay attention to what they're saying, and not just what they're saying, but the way that they're saying it, what their face is telling us, what their body is telling us. Body language is so fun. It is the best way, if you can learn how to recognize body language, it's one of the very best ways for you to get really good at social skills, because you learn how to read people. They don't have to tell you, I'm having a great day or I'm having a terrible day. They don't have to tell you that. You can see it. And the fact that you can see it and you're sensitive to it is going to make it really a lot easier for you to get along with people and for people to like you. People are just genuinely really like being around people who they can tell are paying attention. Okay? So that's eye contact. And let's take a step back and let's talk big picture with body language. There's a concept, which is the main concept to pay attention to when it comes to body language, which is comfort versus discomfort. So when a person is comfortable, and let me back up and say that human beings, all of them, regardless of where they come from, will generally move toward things that are comfortable to them and away from things that are uncomfortable to them. This is human, okay? This is reptile brain kind of stuff that's happening and driving our behaviors. We move toward things that make us feel comfortable and away from things that make us feel uncomfortable. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, but if there's nothing else going on, that you can take that to the bank. That is how it works. So, if I'm trying to analyze body language, if there are some signals that can tell me if somebody is comfortable or uncomfortable, that's going to be very useful. Turns out the biggest one that a lot of people already know, the biggest one is this one right here. Cross your arms. If somebody has their arms crossed, that is a signal to you that they are uncomfortable with that situation right that minute. Now, why does that mean uncomfortable? Well, because this part of your body is the most vulnerable part of your body. From a think evolutionary perspective, this is where I can get hurt. You can slit my throat, you can stab me in the heart, you can collapse my lung. All these bad things can happen to me right here. This is the area of my body that is most vulnerable. So when I'm feeling uncomfortable, I will naturally protect it. I'll put something in kind of between you and me and just kind of, I'll close up a little bit. So I'm kind of closing myself off. I'm trying to make myself smaller. These are all signs of discomfort. The reverse is if I'm just sitting here, I'm just kind of wide open, taking up a lot of space and just leaning back, something like that. That's comfort. Maybe it's too much comfort, but that's comfort. Okay, so pay attention to comfort, discomfort, and this open versus closed is one of the biggest things you can do. And again, out in the real world, sitting around, you and your buddies, watch people and try to figure out, is that person comfortable or uncomfortable? It's a great game to play with people. Just you and your friends sit around and watch a group of people and try to read their body language and talk about it together. I used to tell one of my kids when he was 13, 14, and he probably of all the kids had the toughest time with social skills. And one of the games that we used to play is I was like, let's pretend like we're spies. And we are on an assignment here in this place to assess the people around us and determine who's comfortable and who's uncomfortable, who's getting along and who's not getting along. Because a spy should be able to go anywhere and blend right in, and nobody knows that they're a spy. They just think they're just another person there. So if you have really, really, really good social skills, then you could be a spy. In fact, you have to have good social skills to be able to be, doing a job like that. So you can make it fun by kind of imagining yourself as a spy or doing something like that, and then looking around and paying attention to the people around you, because that's actually what they do. They actually have to do that. They have to be able to read people and figure out what's going on. So the comfort-discomfort thing is really a big one, and it's not just here. So there's another area for body language that you can pay attention to that the vast majority of the people have no idea about, and that's the feet. Your feet point toward the things you're interested in and away from the things that you're not. Another way to put it is that if you look down at someone's feet, they will mostly tell you where that person wants to be. So if you and your friend are having a conversation, your close friend, you're having a conversation about something, and you just kind of briefly go, look down, look at your feet. Most of the time, your friend's feet and your feet are going to be pointing right at each other because you're both engaged in the conversation. You're comfortable with the conversation, so your feet are pointing right at each other. Now, suppose you go and talk to a girl that you've never talked to before. You've only talked to her a couple times. You don't really have, you don't have a lot going on with her. But you're trying, so you're doing all the things that we've talked about. You're talking about things that are external, and you're being interested and not interesting. And, you're trying to notice things about her. And so you're doing everything right. And now let's take a little check-in. You'd look down at her feet. One of her feet is pointing right at you, but the other foot's pointing kind of off to the side. What do you think that tells you? What that tells you is that she's kind of only partly into the conversation. She's sort of looking to maybe go. Her feet are basically saying, I sort of want to go this way. So what should you do with that? Well, the same thing that you should do while you're having that conversation with her, and all of a sudden you notice her do this. Uh-oh. Something has just become uncomfortable. Now, it is not your job right that minute to diagnose what's going on. Your job is to gracefully in the conversation so that the person that you are interacting with who is not feeling super comfortable with it can get away without having any kind of negative feelings towards you. So how do you do that? Well, if you pick up on one of these negative signals, then you can say, oh, you know what? I just realized I got to get to class. It was great talking to you, and see you later, and then walk away. What you have accomplished there is enormous, and you cannot fail to recognize this. You interacted with somebody that you may have been a little nervous about interacting with. You tried all the stuff that we talked about. You had good enough awareness of body language that you were able to pick up on a signal that said to you that this is not going well. And you were able to exit the situation gracefully without getting rejected, without any drama or anything. And you live to interact again another day. So now you've got another interaction that you had where you've got some data and you can start thinking about what happened. And there's a million reasons why she may have been comfortable or uncomfortable. Some of it may be you and what you were saying. Some of it may be something entirely different that has nothing to do with you. You don't need to figure that out necessarily. What you need to do is think about it and think if you could correlate anything, like right when you said this, her arms went up. Okay, that might be a signal then to whatever it was that you said might not have been too smooth, and she may have felt uncomfortable with that. It isn't so important that you figure out exactly what's causing everything to happen at once. That will happen over time. What's most important is that you're doing this, that you're having these interactions, and you're paying attention. And like I said, it's not just about your interactions. The interactions can be just watching other people have interactions. So talking about feet a little bit more, feet point toward where people want to be in general. So pay attention to that. Again, when you're playing spy and you're watching people and stuff like that, you see some people standing up talking to each other, notice the person that's not really into the conversation, and then notice if the other person is aware of it. A lot of times, this is one of the things about social skills that's so strong. If you don't know these things, you can be completely oblivious, completely unaware that this person is not into this conversation, and you're just going on and on and on and on. I have seen this happen so many times, and it is painful to watch because I can see this young person who's trying, and they're going on some 5-minute story about Infinity Wars, and it was they didn't really like it, and there was a couple things that they didn't care too much for, and they're just going on, and this other person that they're talking to has both feet pointed in the other direction, has their hands up like this, isn't saying anything, and this person that's talking to him has no idea. That will never be you, okay? Because you have enough awareness that you would recognize this is not going well, and you would either switch it up, talk about something different, see if that changes things, or just exit, okay? But when you're watching other people, look for that, and you'll see it, and it'll make you cringe when you see it, because you'll be like, oh man, if he only understood, this person is telling him they're not into it. Yeah, that's what we're doing, and that's what you're going to learn, okay? So spend some time with that. If you want a really interesting one, talking about feet, if you got a group of people that are all talking, if you look down at the feet of the people in the group, if there is a person in that group who is kind of the leader of that group, everybody's feet will be pointing toward that person. Now, that's freaky. That's the kind of thing when you see it, you're like, oh my gosh. But again, this is all human stuff. It's all of us, and it's all happening below the radar of consciousness. We're not aware of this. We're not thinking about it. I'm not deciding where I'm going to point my feet. My body's just doing that, autopilot. But it's going to do the same thing based upon how it feels all the time. So you need to just pay attention to that. Okay, so let me leave you with one thing. And this is kind of a joke, but I think it's important about what we're doing here, okay? So you got a couple of guys sitting around a campfire. They got their shoes off, they've been hiking all day, they're feeling tired, and just at the edge of the light, where the lights, they hear some ruffling, kind of something's making some noise, and all of a sudden, they look and there is a giant bear has just popped up into the light and is looking right at them. We're talking 15, 20 feet from them. So close, big bear. They obviously panic, and one of them spins around and grabs his shoes and starts putting his shoes on. The other one looks at him and is like, what are you doing? There's no way we're going to be able to outrun this bear. And the guy says, I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you. So think about that. What he's saying is, I am only competing with you in this situation because if the bear catches you, he's going to eat you and I will have time to get away. So what does that have to do with any of this? Well, you are competing with your peers. You're competing with all those kids that stare in their phones all day long. You're competing with those kids who don't want to talk to anybody they don't know, never ever want to approach somebody that they don't know, who will avoid interacting with human beings at all costs. The kids who, when they go to meet somebody new, will look down and never look up and look them in the eye. You're competing with all of them. And you're competing for what? You're competing for, an opportunity to get a job or to get into a school, or an opportunity for a romantic partner, an opportunity to be friends with somebody, an opportunity to go somewhere and do something. Any number of things that rely upon human beings to interact with each other, you're competing with them. But the good news is that you're going to beat them because you're learning this stuff. The social skills stuff just takes practice, and it just takes an interest in learning it. So keep moving forward, keep interacting, keep doing it. Keep doing it as long as you can. And I'm telling you, if you take the body language thing to heart and really start paying attention to that, that can make it a lot more fun. So looking people in the eyes, all that stuff. Body language, body language. Okay, so that's it for this one. Get out there.